I used to believe my healthy breakfast was protecting my blood sugar. Oatmeal, whole wheat toast, fresh orange juice, even low-fat yogurt. Every nutrition label looked clean. Every doctor's brochure approved it. But at 8:30 every morning, my glucose monitor showed the same pattern. A sharp spike, then a crash, then cravings, then exhaustion. And what shocked me most was this. The damage wasn't happening because of dessert. It was happening before most people even finished breakfast. I'm Dr. Daniel Reeves, a metabolic health researcher studying insulin resistance, glucose metabolism, and cellular aging. And after analyzing continuous glucose monitor data from hundreds of adults over 50, I discovered something disturbing. Most people are unknowingly eating breakfasts that program their blood sugar to stay unstable for the next 10 to 12 hours. Not because they eat too much sugar, but because they eat the wrong combination of foods at the wrong biological time. In the morning, your body is already under metabolic pressure. Cortisol is naturally elevated. The liver is releasing stored glucose into the bloodstream. Insulin sensitivity is temporarily reduced. So if breakfast creates even a moderate glucose spike, your body spends the entire day trying to recover from it. That's why so many people feel tired after lunch, hungry again at 11 a.m., foggy in the afternoon, and mysteriously hungry at night. The first meal controls the metabolic rhythm of the entire day. But here's the fascinating part. Certain breakfast foods don't simply avoid glucose spikes. They actively improve how your body handles glucose for hours afterward. In clinical nutrition research, this phenomenon is called the second meal effect, meaning the right breakfast can improve blood sugar responses at lunch and dinner too. And today, I'm going to show you 3 breakfast foods that changed metabolic markers faster than most people expect. These foods improve insulin signaling, slow gastric emptying, reduce post-meal glucose excursions, activate satiety hormones, and help your muscles absorb glucose more efficiently. One of these foods reduced post-meal blood sugar spikes by nearly 30% in controlled dietary studies when paired correctly, and almost everyone is eating it the wrong way. Let's begin with the most misunderstood breakfast food in metabolic health: eggs. For decades, eggs were unfairly blamed for health problems they never caused. But when I began reviewing research published in journals like Diabetes Care, Clinical Nutrition, and the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, I realized eggs were doing something extraordinary inside the diabetic body. They were acting like metabolic stabilizers. One large egg contains about 6 grams of complete protein, roughly 5 grams of healthy fats, essential amino acids, choline, lutein, zeaxanthin, selenium, and almost 0 carbohydrates. Its glycemic index is essentially 0, but that's not the real reason eggs are powerful. The true power of eggs comes from what they force your hormones to stop doing. Every morning, your liver begins releasing glucose into the bloodstream. This process is called hepatic glucose output. It's normal. Your body is preparing you for activity. But in insulin resistance, this system becomes dysregulated. The liver releases too much glucose. That's why many people wake up with high fasting blood sugar, even when they haven't eaten in 10 hours. This is often called the dawn phenomenon. Now, here's where eggs become metabolically unique. The combination of protein and fat in eggs dramatically slows digestion while minimizing insulin demand. Instead of forcing a rapid glucose response, eggs create metabolic stability. Studies demonstrate high-protein breakfasts reduce post-meal glucose excursions while improving satiety hormones like peptide YY and GLP-1. These hormones directly reduce hunger and stabilize energy. But there's another mechanism most people never hear about: GLUT4 activation. GLUT4 is a glucose transporter found primarily in muscle tissue. Think of it as a doorway that allows glucose to leave the bloodstream and enter muscle cells where it can be used for energy. In insulin resistance, these doorways become less responsive, but high-quality proteins rich in leucine and essential amino acids help stimulate GLUT4 translocation, especially when paired with movement, like walking after breakfast. This means eggs don't simply prevent glucose spikes, they help your body dispose of glucose more efficiently afterward. That changes everything, because diabetes is not simply a disease of too much sugar, it's a disease of impaired glucose handling. Eggs also profoundly influence appetite hormones. They suppress ghrelin, your hunger hormone, and support leptin signaling, your fullness hormone. This reduces the urge to snack later in the day, and every unnecessary snack is another glucose spike your body must manage. There's also something happening in your digestive system. Eggs slow gastric emptying. This means food leaves your stomach more slowly, causing glucose absorption to occur gradually instead of rapidly. Your blood sugar curve becomes smoother, lower peaks, fewer crashes, more stable energy. And stable energy changes behavior. People make worse food decisions when glucose fluctuates aggressively. Cravings intensify, cortisol rises, inflammation increases. Stable blood sugar creates metabolic calm. Eggs also contain lutein and zeaxanthin, two carotenoid antioxidants strongly associated with retinal protection. Why does this matter? Because chronic glucose instability damages small blood vessels in the eyes long before symptoms appear. Diabetic retinopathy begins silently. So eggs are not simply helping glucose, they're helping protect tissues most vulnerable to glucose damage. In one controlled dietary study, participants consuming eggs at breakfast demonstrated significantly better glucose stability throughout the day, with reduced caloric intake at later meals. This is the second meal effect in action. Now let me show you the mistake people make. They destroy the metabolic advantage of eggs by pairing them with ultra-processed breakfast foods. Sugary cereal, white toast, hash browns fried in seed oils, sweet coffee drinks. That combination overwhelms the stabilizing effect. The most effective strategy is simple. 2 or 3 eggs within the first hour after waking, combined with fiber-rich vegetables like spinach, tomatoes, mushrooms, or peppers. Optionally paired with avocado or a small amount of slow-digesting carbohydrates like sourdough or sprouted grain bread. Boiled, poached, or lightly scrambled works best. And avoid heavily processed breakfast meats whenever possible, because excess sodium, preservatives, and inflammatory oils may counteract metabolic benefits. But here's the deeper truth. Eggs don't force blood sugar downward artificially. They teach your metabolism how to become more stable naturally. That's why they work long-term. Now let's move to the most misunderstood carbohydrate in breakfast nutrition: green bananas. Most people with diabetes are terrified of bananas. And honestly, ripe bananas can absolutely spike blood sugar in certain individuals. But green bananas behave completely differently inside the body. Nutritionally, they act less like sugar and more like a metabolic training system. And once I started examining resistant starch research, I realized green bananas were one of the most underestimated foods in glucose control. A medium green banana contains resistant starch, fiber, potassium, vitamin B6, magnesium, and relatively slow digesting carbohydrates. But the resistant starch is what changes everything. Resistant starch resists digestion in the small intestine. Instead of rapidly converting into glucose, it travels into the large intestine, where gut bacteria ferment it into short-chain fatty acids, like butyrate. And this is where metabolism becomes fascinating. Butyrate improves insulin sensitivity, reduces inflammation, strengthens gut barrier integrity, and enhances metabolic flexibility. In simple terms, resistant starch helps your body process carbohydrates more intelligently. Research published in Nutrition and Metabolism and Diabetes Care demonstrates resistant starch can improve insulin sensitivity by up to 20 to 30% in certain populations. That's enormous, because insulin sensitivity determines how effectively glucose leaves the bloodstream. Now, let's connect this to the morning glucose surge. Every morning, cortisol rises naturally. The liver releases glucose.